Welcome to Forum 360 on Fusion, your PBS channel. Thank you for joining us for our global outlook with a local view. This is Leslie Ungar, your host today. Several years ago, I read about our guest today. I had never seen or met her, but the image that I had seen of her waist-length hair and model looks stuck with me. One day, I pulled into a parking lot and I saw the logo on her truck. Not quite, but almost a stalker. I set out to find this person I had read about. Surely, if her vehicle was close, she could not be too far. And that is how I first met our guest today. Sometimes we want to put labels on people to easily identify who they are or what they do. You would need 20 labels to describe Rachel. Motivational speaker, certified life coach, recovery coach, high fashion model, image consultant, author, blogger, equine performer, a great daughter, and a mom to a Chinese crested hairless dog, to name a few. Rachel's life work has been working with teenage girls to help them achieve health and happiness through a curriculum using horses. In our efforts to present the jewels in Northeast Ohio, I welcome a very special jewel, Rachel Whitehouse Day. Welcome to Forum 360.
Thank you so much. What an introduction.
It's all true.
Thank you.
All I had to do was write it. I didn't even have to make up anything.
Thank you so much.
So we welcome you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Let's start chronologically and work up to the present and your work with young girls and horses, okay? There are just some people, we look at them and we think, they can't be from here. They must be from New York or California or Paris or somewhere else. You're one of them. So tell us about your early years.
Okay. Well, I'm not originally from Ohio, but my parents are. I grew up in Texas and California, but I went to high school here, and Ohio is home to me. I've been here for many, many years. I did go back to California and start a modeling career. I lived in New York City for a number of years. And spent time in Europe as well. So I've been a lot of places, but Ohio is always going to be home. So I love it here.
Now, tell us, what was it like to grow up partly in the American Indian world? You chose to keep the name Whitehouse in your last name. So that's something that I assume that you're proud of.
Absolutely.
So tell us the meaning of Whitehouse and why you kept it.
Okay. Growing up with Native history was wonderful. My dad was just a remarkable man. We lost him in 2007, but what a remarkable man. And my mother, who is still living, is equally remarkable. But that heritage is such a wonderful thing to have, and I had such a great balance of a lot of different heritages. A little, my ethnicity is varied, so it's a wonderful thing. But when I got into my 20s, my dad and I got we were always very, very close, and we really recreated our bond together, even more so with horses. My dad was a wonderful horse person, and I've had horses most of my life. And the name Whitehouse is actually a name that was given to me in part by my father. It's a long story. I won't take all this time to describe it, but a white hawk is a mythical character that comes into a community and makes it better. And that's what I really felt my mission in life is to go into the world and make it better. And around that same time, I was doing a lot of motivational speaking and not really feeling like I was doing enough for the community I was serving. And that's when I set about to create curriculum that would teach girls and teach women how to do the things I was motivating them and encouraging them to do. So Whitehouse became a much broader term for me, a philosophy really, and that's what started the ranch.
Well, now, is that something that is a part of the American Indian culture, to give someone a name that they're not born? I mean, most of us just have the name that we're born with, and maybe it meant something centuries ago. You were a locksmith, so maybe your last name's Locksmith, but or something. But but we don't give people names that person we feel earned.
Right.
Is that something that is part of your culture?
It is. Some, and different tribes have different, histories and different philosophies about that. But yes, it's not uncommon for an adult person to take on a name, to search a name, and to search out a name and something that has additional meaning to who they've become and who they want their identity to be. So it isn't uncommon at all. And it's wonderful. It has power. Names have incredible power.
But does it make it harder to, then what do you pass on, say, to a child? Like, which name gets passed on to the child, like the family name or the name that you chose?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the family. I think that, some tribes are matrilineal. The Cherokee tribe is traditionally matrilineal. So people would take on the woman's last name. I don't know that that's done as much now as it was, centuries ago. But I think it just depends on each family and what they value. I think a lot of times middle names are given, that have that relevance or are taken from names that people have chosen for themselves and carry that power. But in every culture, we know how important and powerful a name is,
Well, then let me ask you, speaking of names, what were you taught as a young person with a full-blooded Indian father, correct? What were you taught about the Indians in America and how America treated the Indians? Like, what were you taught either, in your family?
Well, my dad was not 100%. There was, some other ethnicity mixed in there, but it was definitely a part of our life and a part of our history. And I think that we were taught to revere everyone and to respect everyone. I didn't grow up feeling disenfranchised or unfairly treated. I mean, certainly the history of Native people is abhorrent, as are many, people in history.
Yes.
But I grew up feeling encouraged and hopeful at the opportunity that this country provides everyone. And my parents were both very optimistic about that in general. So my sister and I were raised with, I think, a balanced, healthy outlook on looking back and taking the things that matter from the past, but realizing that we have so much opportunity in this country and in this time in history that maybe we didn't have before, and to be grateful for those opportunities.
Oh, great. Well, let me ask you, from many immigrants, over the last 100, 200 years, they could keep some part of their culture as they assimilated into the American culture. But what parts of the Indian culture did your family keep? We tend to think of foods and holidays that we can keep, but are there some things that you kept or that you still keep that you could share with us?
Yeah, I think, and again, every family is different, and we're so interspersed now, right, in our culture, and we're melted to such a degree. I think it's additionally difficult for Native people because we have reservations, now that other people who are here in this country don't have. So I think that makes it more difficult and maybe easier in some ways. But we attended powwows all the time.
Did you?
And I have the fondest memories of spending vacation time with my husband before he passed away and my dad before he passed away. At powwows. We would go to Albuquerque every year to the Gathering of Nations, which is the world's largest gathering of indigenous people.
So largest meaning like how many?
Oh, I don't want to be wrong, but I would say I think it's probably 60,000 converge on Albuquerque for a 4-day or 5-day period, and it is just extraordinary to see all these different tribal people together and the camaraderie, and the beauty of the dances and the prayers and the attire.
That's what I'm thinking of.
I mean, you and I are fashion people. We love all things fashion, but Native fashion is an entirely beautiful thing in and of itself, and the history of our regalia and all of that, just extraordinary.
So that perfectly leads me into my next question.
Okay.
There has long been, at least from my perspective, there's long been a kind of an American lore, if not a truth, about the synergy between American Indians and their horses.
Oh, yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
I believe that's true. I believe, and I 100% believe this in my heart, Native people are the most extraordinary horse people in the world.
Now, why?
Because we had to be.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
We lived among them. We didn't govern them, we lived among them. We were in their culture, we were in their life, we were in their world. And I think that what makes our training methods so wonderful and so safe is that we interact with the horse as a horse. And we become the leader of the herd, or the mare, the lead mare, right? And that's what we do at the ranch. That's what we're teaching the girls to do, to become the leader of their life and their herd. But that Native American observation and being able to look at how a mare treats a foal and how a stallion treats a mare taught us how to interact with each of these horses safely, and to be able to create a relationship with them that didn't require abuse or fear. You know, if you lead with fear or force, you're never going to have what you really want, which is ayuptala, becoming one with that horse, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Would you say that again?
Ayuptala.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a Cherokee word that means becoming one. And I'd love to take credit for it, but I can't. Gawani Ponyboy created that phrase, or created the mantra that goes around that phrase, but it's so true. It's what we've done for hundreds and hundreds of years.
I loved watching the old movies, and of course I always cheered for the Indians,
Right.
but I couldn't imagine how they could like just jump on the horse and they would go to war or ride with no saddle, no bridle. They would just, I always was just in awe of this relationship that you could see.
And you can still have that. We still train that at the ranch. We still create that oneness, so that there's a willingness on the part of that horse to be a part of your life, because what you're giving him or her is the freedom to be safe and to work together and to become one person and one entity and one unit. And it's remarkable. And it's not done probably enough, but we do as much of it as we can at the ranch, because it is a message for life. It's a great remedy for life, you know.
Well, before I ask you more about that, I have to ask you this, because I'm going way back in my memory, and I could remember this wrong, but I seem to remember you telling me that you did what we call trick riding.
Right.
Now, as someone who has showed horses for 25 years, I believe that trick riding is the hardest, takes the most skill and the most guts of any kind of riding, with polo coming in second.
Yeah, polo.
Second.
That's out of my league.
Not first. I think trick riding is so amazingly difficult, but you did do that. Would you just talk for a minute about that? Because,
sure.
And tell people that may not know what I'm talking about, tell them what they see when they see someone trick riding.
Yeah, there are a lot of different types of trick riding. You know, there is circus riding, there's acrobatic trick riding. Traditional Native American trick riding was really just a survival method. You know, so much of riding comes from war, dressage, and these other histories, comes out of the necessity to be able to command a horse in a very volatile or violent or potentially deadly situation. Native American trick riding is not unlike that. When hunting was involved, or warfare, those kinds of things, the agility of the rider made all the difference, literally between life and death. So in the work that we did, and I would love to be able to say I still trick ride, but I don't, because of a back injury that had nothing to do with trick riding. I don't get to do that as much as I would like to now. But for many years I did, and it really is the combination of a great horse, the ability to communicate, and then the physical agility of probably a world-class athlete. Because in order to be able to do some of what we've done and what we do, you have to really have an incredible command of your own body and your mind.
So tell us, what would we see when you were working with the horse? What would we, the untrained observer, see?
One of the things that we used to do, and I used to ride with a group called Sacred Circle, and we would do these demonstrations, trick riding demonstrations. One of the things was called an Indian pickup. And what would happen is, and in times of war this would happen, if a warrior lost a horse and he was left on the battlefield without a horse, if his cohort or tribal member saw him, he would make a run straight for him. And right at the moment that it was important, he would reach down, the other person would grab that arm, and the synergy and gravity would throw the person up over on the back of the horse, and they would continue on. You're doing that with no saddle, and in some cases an oliga or no bridle. So you had to be able to have that agility and that timing. And it really is so much about what's going on up here, which is also what we do, we teach in the ranch as well, the ability to control your emotions, to concentrate on executing something immediately and providing the body energy to do it. Another thing that we would do, you would tie a rope around the midsection of a horse, and you would slide one leg down into that to act as kind of a sort of a barrier to keep you kind of on the horse long enough to turn around and shoot a bow and arrow. And again, very quick, you know, gravity's on your side if you're going fast enough, which is kind of ironic because you're going so fast it's dangerous. But it's something that you just learn to do, and if you have the passion for horses, you do, and I do. It's second nature to be able to do that.
Have the passion to do that.
You could do it.
Today we are talking to Rachel Whitehouse Day. We are about to learn about her work with young girls and homeless women and horses. Before I get to that, one last question. Young girls forever have dreamt of becoming a model.
Yes.
I don't think there's probably a young girl out there that did not dream of that,
regardless
of what they look like,
right.
You got into modeling and it has been some part of your life through every phase of your life.
Yes.
Tell us the good things about modeling.
Okay, what a great question, because there are some good things.
Good.
I got into modeling right after high school. I was as tall as I am now in 5th grade, which is reason for being bullied many times over. But at some point, your height and your bone structure and the uniqueness of your look pays off because people begin to notice you in a different way. So I'm thankful, first and foremost, that I had a foundation at home that taught me what I look like is not who I am. This is a shell, and it can be utilized in a lot of different ways, but who I really am is what's on the inside and what I decide to do with this. So I went into the modeling industry with that framework in mind, which I think helped me tremendously. Fashion is a passion, both for me and for you, as I've said. And I think that it provides such a marvelous opportunity for you to really build your confidence by creating the canvas that you want. You know, what we look like is a part of us in that it's the first thing people see. So fashion can give you confidence. It can change things about you that you don't particularly like. You know, it's a great outlet. It's artistic. For me, my motto is life is a runway. You know, I dress the same way every day because I have that freedom to do that, and we all do. We just have to take in that self-confidence and create that. And I think our appearance can do that for us. I think as long as we balance it with who we are and we don't obsess over it, it can be a great thing. I think fashion, too, provides femininity that we've lost over the years. You know, we've kind of become a very casual, kind of relaxed society, and I think some of that, our societal norms have kind of dropped, and femininity and decorum and sophistication has slipped away. Fashion helps us to bring that back and to enjoy that part of our lives as women, you know. I think that the great thing that you and I were talking about earlier is that how much more broad the fashion industry is now. There's so much more available to people of all different sizes and ethnicities, and we have a brand new division called Curves in the fashion world, which we didn't have 10, even 5 years ago. So it's a wonderful, wonderful outlet, I think, for creativity, and as long as it's kept in balance, it can be a wonderful thing, and it's something that we incorporate at the ranch as well.
So let me just ask you one thing that you think that young girls get wrong about their image.
Wow, there's so many things.
You pick one.
Pick one. I think the worst thing that girls do, and the most significantly harmful thing, is they compare themselves to other people. I think the advent of Facebook and social media has only made that more difficult, because a girl sees something on Facebook or on Instagram and immediately thinks that those photos, first of all, are real.
They're real. That's really what they look like, and that's really their life.
Right, and that's really how they live, and everything's wonderful, and everything's amazing, and there's perfect, you know. And that begins to deteriorate the worth of that young girl. And once that happens, it's an uphill struggle to get it back. And that is probably the most significant problem that we deal with in terms of self-image at the ranch, is this idea that I'm comparing myself to other people, and all this imagery is hitting me, and instead of deciphering it objectively, I'm being taken in by it.
So let's turn our attention to your present-day work with these young girls. You founded Whitehouse Ranch in 2003 to provide teen girls and women in all walks of life the opportunity to achieve their optimal health and happiness. First, let me ask you, what void did you see that you felt that the ranch could fill? Great question.
There was an enormous void. I had been in the modeling industry. I'd lived in New York City for a long time. I'd gotten married. But as I said, my self-worth didn't come from my appearance. You know, it was just, my appearance was just something added that I enjoyed and that I was able to benefit from as a model. But I began to see what the imagery was doing to young girls and to women. in my interactions with people, and just in general, seeing how society was beginning to really fall apart with women and how they look, how they feel about themselves. And as I said, I began to speak motivationally all over the country about these issues and related issues. And I realized I need to provide a method and a philosophy that teaches women how to kind of step that back and recalculate and recalibrate who they are and how they feel about themselves. Our perception is everything. So I created curriculum that really teaches us how to regroup and really create the life that we want by changing how we think.
Now, how would a young girl find you? Or you find them?
Right. Most people find us. We don't do a lot of advertising. We haven't had to, and I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse, because there's so much need out there for girls and for women to have the kind of experience that the ranch gives them. Because I tell them, once you get these skills, no one can take them from you, because it's a new paradigm. It's a new shift in thinking, and it works. So people can come to our website. We do word of mouth primarily. You know, people can find us on the web. If you just Google me and my name, you'll find us, and we'll be able to help you. Rachel Whitehawk. Just Rachel Whitehawk is okay. Enough. Whitehawk Ranch. If you Google that, you'll find us, and we're here to help. Now,
how would you say that women experience better mental health through this program?
What we do. It's wonderful to sit in a TED Talk or to watch something on television, be inspired and say, wow, that's great. I love that story. I love the way I feel right now. And we go away from that, and we can't sustain that feeling because we don't have the skills that teach us to create that in our own life. That's what our program does. The horses are ancillary to the overall methodology and curriculum. In 30 days, a habit or a thought process can be changed. And so much of the way we think is habitual. You know, we've learned some negative ways of coping, we've learned how to talk to ourselves negatively, and we've gotten into this habit of just doing things in a way that really doesn't bring us joy. You come out to the ranch, you're in a different environment, we have the tools and the information that will help you reevaluate that, completely change it, restructure your thinking, and give you a brand new life by giving you the skills that allow you to have that feeling all the time.
So an example of a skill that someone could leave with would be?
Right. Let's say, for example, voicemail in our head. I have a series of methodologies that we use to help you change the way you think. We have some really unique exercises that we have you do while you're at home. You come to us once a week, but each day that you're without us, you're going to be continuing to do some of these exercises. We have a specific exercise where we take certain, I don't want to give away our secret, but you take certain pieces of paper, certain pieces of information that we put on that piece of paper, and you place it in a wristband that we provide you. That, coupled with some other auditory things that we give you, begin to change the process that the brain has in thinking about something negative and turning it into something positive. And it takes a process. It takes 30 days. So if we have you for 6 weeks, we're well on our way to giving you a new thought process.
In just the couple minutes that unfortunately we have left, I have a couple questions that I want to ask you for one or two word answers, okay?
Oh my.
The first one
Lightning
I'm dying to ask you, of all the breeds of dogs in the world, how does someone with waist-length hair choose a hairless dog?
My first one I found at the Humane Society in Manhattan, and I thought he was a little monkey. He was the most unattractive little thing in the world, and I knew nobody else would want him, and I took him. And ever since then, I've been in love with the hairless breed. They're the best dogs in the world.
Out of all the breeds of horses that you have worked with, what is one of your favorite breeds?
The Clydesdale.
Because?
They are the gentle giants of the world, and they have the sensitivity of an Arab, but they have the size and the girth of a giant beast, and it is just a beautiful combination. It's a beautiful breed.
If there was one thing that you would want young girls or women to know that you think they don't know, what would that one thing be?
One thing that I'd want them to know about life?
Or themselves.
Or themselves. There is no greater joy than learning who you are and just being you. That's the magic of life.
Living or dead, one person you would want to have dinner with?
Winston Churchill.
Because?
brilliant orator. I'm a speaker. I'm fascinated by his history and his ability to write and to speak. Winston Churchill, definitely.
And because you are a jewel in Northeast Ohio, one of your favorite parts of Northeast Ohio?
The Cuyahoga Valley. Beautiful area. Lots of beautiful, wonderful memories, and just a beautiful place. I mean, Ohio is beautiful in so many places. We're so fortunate.
Yes, we are.
A lot of people don't know what's here, but the valley is a special place.
Sometimes we look at people we admire. We admire their looks, what we think is their wealth or their success, and we think they have it all. Not only do they not have it all, but we tend to think that it was all easy for them and it's always hard for us. Rachel Whitehawk Day has shared some of her story with us, enough for us to know that she's one of the diamonds in Northeast Ohio. Whether you have a young daughter, are a young daughter, or you can identify with other parts of Rachel's story, you can agree that behind her model good looks is one tough lady. That toughness is something that we can all learn from. Thank you to our guest and all of you for joining us on Forum 360. I'm Leslie Ungar with your Global Outlook with a local view. And one last question. I know it's like choosing a favorite child, but your favorite horse?
Amaruccio, my Clydesdale. I lost him in August, and he was one special horse. Very special.
And the best thing about him?
His ability to read my mind.
Thank you for joining us on Forum 360.
Forum 360 is brought to you by Electrical Impulse Communications, the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, an anonymous donor, the Jewish Community Board of Akron, Medical Mutual of Ohio, Blue Green, and Forum 360 supporters.